Welcome to Biztech's Jobs and Careers show, where we discuss key issues and topics relating to jobs and careers across the Asia-Pacific region. Now, today we speak to Simon Dale, the Managing Director, Southeast Asia and Korea at Adobe. Now, Adobe is founded in 1982 and is an American multinational computer software company which pioneered the paper-to-digital transformation with the invention of PDF. But Simon, there's a lot more to Adobe right now. Give us an overview of your business and your business in Southeast Asia. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Brian. Pleasure to be here. And yes, Adobe does a lot more than PDF these days. I think we're very famous in the business community in particular for the PDF or Adobe Acrobat franchise and Adobe Sign with digital signatures, which is become very relevant during the pandemic period for us and for a lot of our businesses. But we're also, the depth and history of our business comes from the creative space, the digital creative space. So a lot of people may be familiar with Photoshop for our image editing or Premiere Pro for video editing and so on. And there's a whole suite of digital creativity tools there and talent from Malaysia, from Singapore, from all over ASEAN who create things using our products and send them out into the world. And that's really the historical 40 years this year business that Adobe's been built on. One of the little known businesses we have, which also particularly is very strong in Southeast Asia, is our Experience Cloud business, where we help brands of all shapes and sizes to move into e-commerce, to understand their customers better in the digital channels that they talk to them with, and then be able to communicate with them through all this digital world much better as well. In all industries across Asia, whether it's the big retailers, the big banks, all about that customer engagement and understanding the science of how to make your customer happy.
Okay, and that's interesting because that leads me to the next question on the pandemic itself. The pandemic really forced a lot of organizations to focus a lot more on employee engagement and wellness, especially mental health issues. Could you kind of walk us through how you as a leader and Adobe as a company responded to the challenges on engaging and retaining talent in the last 24 months?
Yeah, absolutely. A great question. I think in context, right, because it will help when I just answer your question. Adobe was one of the first companies to move to this cloud, this thing called the cloud, right, which actually means we became a service provider, not just a product provider. So it's not just that people use our products, they rely on our services to be working so they can do their work. So this is a big shift in the industry that a lot of companies are still going through. But Adobe went first over 10 years ago. And that meant that one of the priorities for us first was to take care of our employees so that they could continue to take care of our customers and keep those services going, right? Because we actually run a lot of the websites for a lot of brands, a lot of the loyalty applications and so on for some of our customers, and the e-commerce sites, as well as all these creative people who may have been struggling to pivot to carry on doing their work from home or whatever, right? So all of these things are services. And so it was really important, first of all, take care of our employees, maintain that service level. And then also for us as a company, but really for me as a leader in this part of the world, it was about engagement, communication, making sure that people still felt included in the business, even though they weren't coming to the office and meeting colleagues and having meetings and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, you know, everyone was online and still collaborating and stuff, but it's not the same as having that community feel. So actually here in our Singapore office and region, we created the Kampong meeting, which we had every 2 weeks at the beginning of the crisis, and it's endured ever since, where we had everybody could join and come and just listen to our latest updates. We could hear what people are doing, continue with our customer success stories and our community outreach activities and so on. But we maintain that community spirit to give people a place where they still felt like they had some purpose and belonging, and they could also get support from our world as well.
And what do you think that Adobe did at that time, and you and Adobe, of course, specifically that made a difference to them? And that's one example that you use, that kampong spirit, to build that
Yes.
kampong spirit. But were there any specific actions, for example, that HR did in terms of addressing issues like mental health?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I mean, it's very much the thing that comes up a lot when Adobe does studies and we publish the analysis of all of the kind of business that we do, when you help our customers do, is this word empathy, right? And sometimes it can take quite a bit of explaining, but what it means is to really understand the context of the person that you're dealing with, trying to understand how they feel, right? And so because Adobe comes from this history of really helping people to understand or to communicate how they feel, right? We also need to understand, how do people feel when they're using our products? How do people feel when they work here? And we have lots and lots of programs and activities that have, over the years, built that culture of empathy within the organization. And as I said, the studies prove that empathy matters when brands engage with customers. So that was applied internally first. As I said, it wasn't just, hey, everybody, take care of yourselves, right? It was, okay, so now everybody's at home. We need to give them the tools which allow to support them to continue to do their job uninterrupted at home. We need to give them permission to self-care, right? Because there was a potential, burnout, of course, happens. And then we were like, look, we really do need to pay attention to people's well-being and mental health. And remember that they also now have their family or partners or whatever all around them as well in the same situation. So that's really where the empathy part comes in. But it was coupled with some hard assets and hard programs to help people to continue to do what they need to do, and also to give them the space in which to do that.
Okay, and Simon, I want to take you up on that key word that you mentioned, the possibilities of burnout. Now, especially with the hybrid, well, pure remote, and then now hybrid working model, the lines between personal life and work life are blurred. So that's impacted people who sometimes feel that they're working all the time. How have you addressed, as Adobe, those issues?
Yeah, so as I said, one was really having respect for the individual and the situation that they're in. And as a manager and a leader of other managers as well, right? It was, culture comes from the top. And that was why, first of all, we created this kampong, regular kampong perhimpunan, which is the village gathering, right? And we gave people a chance to get out of work and decompress a little bit, or here's some good stories, here's some uplifting stories, or hear the realities of some of the challenges people have been going through, right? And telling those positive stories to give them a different mental space to be in, and to show them that there was the community there for them if they needed it. The other thing that Adobe did, which was pretty early, we didn't really make a big song and dance about this, but we also gave people a global day off. I think it was every month in the first stage of COVID. We say, look, we recognize that you have your holidays, your public holidays and so on, but what would really work is if everybody cut the noise down for a day. So that if it was a public holiday in Singapore, we'd still be getting emails and things from America or Australia or whatever. Why not just shut everybody down for a day, and then everybody gets a quiet period that they can reflect or take off or do the personal stuff they need, whatever they wanted to use it for.
Okay, that was actually a really good idea. Now, the other thing that has been a drawback in a virtual setting, and a lot of companies have basically not missed the beat. They've companies like yourself, which are forward thinking, have engaged employees and managed them well in this crisis. However, one of the big drawbacks in a virtual setting is the difficulty in building relationships. For some people, an extrovert like myself, you find ways of trying to do that. But for many people, that's really difficult to do, because, for example, you want to build your relationship with a customer or a business partner. It's really hard to do that virtually. It could be exhausting for some. What can individuals do to address this and engage more effectively?
Well, I mean, some of the studies we did, right, in terms of our customer experience world, indicated that brands that, as I said, put a lot more thought into the communication and were willing to incorporate the situation into their messaging got a lot of response. So those brands that didn't shy away from saying, hey, our images of people without masks might not be good in a crisis, so let's put masked people in our promotion material, or let's talk about the fact that this is going on and maybe this is going to be useful for you as a product or service in the context of, we know everybody's living in this world, so let's make sure we're communicating in that appropriate way. Internally, again, it's the same kind of thing, right? It's like communicating in context. But I'd also like to pick up on the first part of your question there. You know, people talk a lot about diversity and inclusion. People focus on the diversity and think inclusion happens. Well, you kind of want to flip it in this situation and say, yeah, inclusion can also mean that there are different personalities that, as you say, respond differently. Some people might be too stressed to communicate, some people might not speak up. So as a manager and as a leader of teams, you want to practice inclusivity in a respectful way, but make sure that people do get a chance to participate, to have their point of view taken on board, to feel like they've contributed. And that is also part of reducing some of the stress that you might get from people feeling a little left out.
Now, Simon, from what our discussion has been, Adobe has been quite proactive in its employee engagement. What would you recommend organizations do in the future to future-proof themselves in terms of engagement strategies?
Well, I think it's a combination, right? Because we don't know what the future holds. It's become more uncertain, right? And we're all hopeful that the latest variant is the variant that makes life head in the direction of somewhat normal, right? But you never know. So there's still an element of uncertainty around. So you need to be able to make sure that the levels of communication are still maintained, where you're building confidence in your employees, but you're also agile enough to respond to a change in the situation. And that means that the digital technologies are still very relevant, even though in our world, at least from our small sample size of our team here in Singapore, I'm in the office and people want to come back to the office, right, today. So it's good that people still want to do the in-person stuff as well. But I'd say that there's the hard asset side of making sure that employees have the right technology to do their job. And it's also not just this kind of video experience. It's actually the workflow. One of the surveys that we did during the COVID period showed us that a lot of employees are frustrated by legacy processes and workflows. So in some places, technology just hasn't been applied and it's just an old process that doesn't work anymore, or the technology isn't suitable or modern enough to support them in what they need to get done, right? So there's that hard asset side. But I'd also say there's a massive amount of education opportunity to teach people better ways to do things with these digital technologies to improve not just their own work, but the way that they work with stakeholders in their organization or their partners and their customers. And that's also a dimension which we invest heavily in as well, and have done over the past couple of years, is really going out to our customers and our even small businesses and saying, hey, you can have access to this kind of technology. Here's how you learn how to do it. Here's an easy way to get into this world. Free training, helping with some grants the government's also put up to help people get on board to this new world, and continually investing in this knowledge development so people feel that they are capable to take advantage of it.
Now, Simon, the key thing now we're in 2022, as you said just a few minutes ago, the uncertainty is still there. The only thing that's certain is uncertainty. How are you planning your hiring policies for 2022, and what do you recommend that organizations who are now struggling in the war for talent, especially in a place like Singapore, which is really surprisingly in this downturn in certain industries really talent short?
Mm, mm. Well, I think what's certainly worked for us here in Singapore, in the context of your question, is the culture that we've really maintained over the past 2 years of making sure that everybody's included. We communicate and we have open communication, and we're a team, right? And I feel that some companies may not put enough emphasis still on that culture of collaboration. And there's this wonderful phrase, psychological safety, right, which is also going back to the inclusion statement. It's giving people the opportunity to express their views in a safe environment. And also, if there are challenges, approaching the root cause analysis, as we call it in the software industry, of those challenges in the appropriate way, without any blame, until the problem has been identified and you agree on how you rectify that. So it's how you approach these different cultural dimensions to make people feel like they are in a safe place that is valuing their contribution and will stay that way. It's maintaining that despite what the world is throwing at us and what other competition might throw at us, or any disruptive forces. But if you can maintain a consistency in the way that you treat your teams and engage your teams, it's certainly paid off for us here.
And Simon, one of the things that a lot of organizations are doing to combat the war for talent in Singapore is actually having fully remote employees, so especially in tech teams. How do you see that playing out in 2022 and beyond?
Oh, I think it's flexibility is the word, right? And you can't have one size that fits all, right? I mean, as you've said, the challenge in building relationships, right? So I look after the whole of Southeast Asia, and I haven't been able to go to a country outside of Singapore to go and meet my partners and customers, or meet new ones and build new relationships, right? So it's been very, very challenging to achieve the same in this virtual world, because particularly in the business to business space, which is this experience world I talked about, it's still very much trust based. And we still live in a world where establishing trust between people, because these are complex decisions, complex projects, usually business transformation, which is a long slog. So you want to know that your partner is a true partner that you can trust, and getting that done is absolutely crucial. Now, saying that, as I said, we're a cloud provider, and our delivery teams can do their whole job remotely, because that's the point, right? And so also then making sure that they have the adequate equipment, bandwidth, support, making sure that they've got the right kind of ability to call on support when necessary, is also the other end of the scope. And at the same time, you want to give people a certain amount of choice and flexibility. I always come back to that, to say that it's best to have a choice. Like here, we're open all week, but people can come on whatever day that they want. I haven't said I'm in a specific day, you need to turn up on a specific day. It very much depends on my schedule and what my team are trying to achieve as to where we go and what we do. But the office is here as a facility for us to be able to get back to doing what we do in this business to business world, which is super important for our growth.
Now, Simon, it's been a fascinating conversation. But before we leave, are there any final thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah, well, again, thanks for the opportunity, Brian. It's been a really interesting chat. I think for us, right, we've been around, as you say, for 40 years. It's a really interesting company and a really interesting space. I think digital creativity, and that creativity meeting the customer through all these digital channels, isn't going away. And we welcome the opportunity to help anybody understand that much better. As I said, lots of enablement, lots of skills building programs that we have out there to help people to understand this, and easy on-ramps to this world as well. So be happy to share that if anybody would like to have a chat anytime.
Thank you very much for taking your time to be on the show, Simon.
Thanks, Brian.
I'm Brian Fernandez, and I've been speaking to Simon Dale, the Managing Director, Southeast Asia and Korea at Adobe, on Biztech's Jobs and Careers show. This video and podcast will be on our various social media platforms, as well as our website, www.biztech.asia. Please like and subscribe to our various platforms. Thank you very much for tuning in.